Good morning, everyone. I greet you all today with the Islamic greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Almighty Allah be upon all of you today. My name is Muaz Jet, and I would like to welcome you all to the Manitoba Islamic Association. I would like to begin with an opening of the Quran, where Allah, Almighty God, says in the Quran, "O you who believe, be upright for God, and be bearers of witness and justice." Before saying anything further, I want to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, OJ Cree, Dakota, and Diné's people. Today, we are here because violence has struck our community. And as we will describe, given the circumstances of the attack, we are greatly concerned that this attack was potentially targeted. In terms of the format of this event today, we will have representations from the National Council of Canadian Muslims, their acting Chief Operating Officer, Asiya Khan, read a statement from the family. Next, a representative from the Manitoba Islamic Association, Dr. Yusuf Sufi, will be turned over to speak, followed by a longtime community member, Brother Abdi Khair Ahmed. I want to turn it over to the MC for tonight, Siti, from the Manitoba Islamic Association.
Thank you, Muaz. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you. I am Siti, as Muaz mentioned. I am the Community Services Manager at Manitoba Islamic Association. I'll be moderating the rest of the program for today. First of all, I would like now to introduce Asiya Khan, Chief Operating Officer for the National Council of Canadian Muslims.
Salam and good morning. My name is Asiya Khan. I'm a community educator and currently serve as the acting Chief Operating Officer at the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Today, every leading Muslim organization in Winnipeg is gathering in solidarity with one of our own. She is a young woman who was just about to graduate high school this June when she was attacked. Make no mistake, we could have been coming to a funeral today at the Manitoba Islamic Association. I will now read a statement from the family. I will note in advance that the young woman is not speaking today, as she would prefer to remain anonymous and to respect the integrity of the legal process. Therefore, she will not be doing any media interviews further to this at this time. I will read from her perspective in the first person. I am a Muslim Winnipegger. I love this community where I've always been myself. As a Muslim, as a woman who wears hijab, as a member of the Somali community. I have never allowed myself to be a victim, and I do not want to be thought of as a victim. I was working at the Olive Garden on June 8th, 2023, where I worked as a server. On that night, an individual came inside and sat down in an adjourning section to where I was serving. This individual was white and started to give off a concerning vibe, especially when I noticed that he was staring at me. The Olive Garden was not full that night, but it still had many customers, other servers, and other staff. None of the other people in the Olive Garden that night were Black or Muslim or wearing hijab. But I was, and he was staring at me. He stared directly at me for a long time, certainly for what felt like half hour. At a certain point, he left the restaurant, and I continued serving other customers. That's when he came back in. This time he had a knife. My back was turned to him when I was serving other customers. He stabbed me in the neck, the torso, and my arms. Thank God I managed to strike him, and another bystander. I don't have a clear memory of this part, but they also tried to intervene. He went straight for me, no one else. I know I could have died. But by the mercy of Allah, I survived. I wanted people in Winnipeg to know my story for 3 reasons. First of all, I think it's important to know that this man who attacked me, who tried to kill me, seemed to target me. He didn't go on a random stabbing spree, which is how the story was first reported. I can't know anyone's motivation for certain, and I don't pretend to. But when he came back, he didn't go to any of the other customers or workers. He went straight at the only minority person in the room, which was me. Secondly, I think it's important for the public and for my community to be aware of the fact that I did not provide a fulsome statement to the police until well after the charges were announced and it was labeled a random attack. This is because I was obviously in hospital. Lastly, I want to encourage my community. Be strong. Be brave. We have been through worse, and we will come out on the other side stronger. This is the conclusion of the statement from the family. Given that, we at the National Council of Canadian Muslims are calling for a fulsome investigation into the attack as to whether it was targeted or potentially hate-motivated. We have been engaging in a positive dialogue with Winnipeg Police Service, and we appreciate that conversation. However, we, the community, and the victim still have important questions about the attack. We believe, though, we deserve those answers. Why did Winnipeg Police reach a conclusion about motivation before getting a fulsome statement? Why was there a charge of aggravated assault on what was clearly an attempted murder case? We look forward to positively engaging with Winnipeg Police Service to get more fulsome answers.
Thank you, Asia. I would like now to introduce Dr. Sufi, a professor and a spokesperson for the Manitoba Islamic Association.
Thank you, Siti. Good morning. My name is Yusuf Sufi. I'm an academic whose research specializes on Islamophobia. And today, I serve as a spokesperson for the Manitoba Islamic Association. I'm here before you because of a horrific incident that struck a member of the Manitoba Muslim community. On June 9th, many Winnipeggers were shocked and appalled to hear of the news of an 18-year-old woman being violently stabbed at an Olive Garden the night before. But what most did not know was that that same day, Winnipeg Muslims were sharing with each other messages of concern on social media. Many of them knew the victim and worried about the scars, emotional, even more than physical, that would stay with her for the rest of her life. They were asking themselves, why did an individual, this attacker, who has a criminal history and has set fires in Winnipeg before, commit this crime? That's because they suspected what we are raising today, the potential that this attack may have been targeted or hate motivated. And many of them worried about their own safety and the safety of their loved ones. Research shows that when a member of a minority is viciously attacked, the incident sends shockwaves throughout the community. A sense of fear and insecurity sets in. That is why the support of our friends and allies throughout this province is so important. It sends a clear message that Muslims aren't alone, that we all stand together, sharing in each other's pain, and sharing in the mutual desire to forge a society free of prejudice and violence against the members of any community. and that we will continue to work to make this society a reality. It is also the reason it is so important to listen to the pain and grievances of Indigenous communities who have also, and for too long, seen violence against the women of their communities normalized. We thank you for coming today and for showing your support, and we ask fellow Winnipeggers to show similar support in the upcoming weeks as we continue to push for a thorough investigation into the motives of the stabbing at the Olive Garden last month. The reality is that more Muslims have been killed in targeted hate attacks in Canada than any other G7 country in the past 7 years. This fact was in the air outside the London Muslim Mosque on June 8th, 2021, when thousands of Londoners gathered in the aftermath of the terror attack that took the lives of 4 members of the Canadian Muslim community in an unthinkable act of Islamophobic violence. The thousands that gathered that day were there to show their solidarity, pray, and stand with members of their community, just as you gather here at the Manitoba Islamic Association. The reality is that Muslims in Canada have been here too many times. A recent report on anti-Muslim racism in Winnipeg has shown that a frighteningly high percentage of Muslims have experienced verbal and even physical attacks because of their faith. Among those that have, a disproportionate number are women, and a disproportionate number are Black. The Manitoba Islamic Association has worked hard to develop resources to combat prejudices in schools, universities, and the healthcare system. Anti-Muslim racism is harmful to us all. As we continue to develop action plans to dismantle biases, we expect your continued support. Know that as a community, we stand with all against prejudice, against bias, against hate, and against violence. And we expect the same from our fellow citizens and our leaders. J'aimerais dire quelques mots en français. La communauté musulmane est en deuil depuis l'attaque d'un de ses membres le mois dernier. Nous demandons à nos concitoyens de nous appuyer et nous remercions nos leaders politiques pour leur soutien aujourd'hui. Merci à tous. Thank you to all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sophie, for your insight. I would like now to call upon NDP Member of Parliament, Leah Gazan. As we all know, she has another commitment that she has to get to. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. First, I wanted to thank the NCCM for inviting me to say a few words today. It's very humbling. I want to send my solidarity to the young woman who experienced violence, to her family, to the Somalian community, and to the Muslim community of Winnipeg, who are reeling after this senseless act of violence. And I thought really hard about what I wanted to say today, and so I'm going to say it truthfully, as I believe that's why I was asked to speak today. We see a rise of hate in this country. We are witnessing a rise in hate crimes in this country, whether it be Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, transphobia, anti-Indigenous hate. We must stand united together to have zero tolerance against all forms of hate in this country. And I call on fellow elected officials at all levels to stop continuing to fuel the flames of hate, because it costs lives, because it causes violence. And I stand today in solidarity with the Muslim community of Winnipeg and across the country, but more specifically, Winnipeg, who has stood side by side with the Indigenous community as we fight our own forms of violence, as we are witnessing in the city of Winnipeg, in regards to the ongoing struggle around the landfills. I want to let you know that I will not stay silent in the face of your violence. I want to let you know that I am here to support you without question and in truth. We must not minimize what occurred as just a random act. I support the community's call. I do support the community's call that this needs more thorough investigation. We have a rise in hate in this country, and if we are going to move forward in the way that I believe that we all want to today in this country, where everybody, regardless who they are, what they look like, what they believe, can live in dignity and security, then we must be truthful. So with that, I want to thank everybody today. My support goes out to the victim and the families. Please reach out to me if you need anything, and to the community. Know I am here. I am not going anywhere, and I will speak strongly against the hate that's been perpetrated so senselessly this time against your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Gazan, for coming out. I would like to now call upon Abdikhair Ahmed, one of our community members.
Good morning, Assalamu alaikum. I greet you in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. I joined you this morning. I'm saddened and shocked while I join here and get together with everybody. My name is Abdikhair Ahmed. I'm a member of the Somali community, an activist, and a community leader. Today, we could have been at a funeral. Thankfully, the victim is alive. The perpetrator wanted us to be at the funeral. Thankfully, we are here in solidarity with the victim who has come through this horrific incident. We've gotten too used to seeing the title, Black Muslim Women Attacked. As a community leader and activist, I was deeply horrified to see what happened. And I was deeply horrified that a young Black Muslim woman was viciously attacked for who she is, what she wears, and what she looks like. My community is equally horrified. Can a Black Muslim woman be dressed the way she wants, go about her own business like everyone else without the fear of such an attack in our community? Can women of color be safe in our community? Can we promise safety to our women of color in our community? And when it comes to justice, can we hold ourselves to higher standards? Can we promise justice to women of color when these atrocious incidents happen to them? I often ask myself these questions, and many of my community members are asking themselves these questions. At a basic minimum, we need safety for young women like this victim. We need to protect them from this kind of hate-motivated attacks. I call it hate-motivated attacks because of what was described by the victim herself. We need justice for this victim. At the basic minimum, we need answers. My community needs answers, but answers require transparency and a fulsome investigation. That's what we need to understand. How could such an attack like this happen in our community? And how could the attacker be so severely undercharged? As a community leader, I've worked so hard to build better relationships between the police, the Winnipeg Police Service, and the newcomer communities of color. I have worked hard to build bridges. I've worked so hard to build a trusting relationship. At times like this, these efforts get tested. At times like this, our law enforcement and our leaders need to be held to higher standards, need to step up, need to protect our community, need to provide justice, and need to provide answers when these kind of things happen. I hope we can uphold these relationships that we have created by ensuring justice for this innocent young woman. I was appalled, and my community is equally appalled by the haste with which the police reached a conclusion of a random attack without even having an interview with the victim. Of course, the victim was in hospital. It took time for anybody to reach out to her. But the haste with which these charges were drawn without fulsome investigation appalls our community. We would like the law enforcement, the Winnipeg Police Service, to do a fulsome investigation that results in charges that are appropriate to atrocious attack on this innocent victim. When someone drives a knife on your neck, aimed at your jugular, punctures your lungs, randomly attacks you as the only person of color in that restaurant wearing hijab with everybody else present, you cannot come down to the possibility of this being a random attack. We need to do better. Some might ask, is all of this work, the exhaustion of the battle for dignity, of the right to survive, worth it? It's a question I'm constantly asked. And to those who say otherwise, I say no. No, it's because of these sacrifices, or the steps of those who came before us, that we will never, never stop until justice is found for this victim and many of the women of color who suffer violence in the hands of people like this perpetrator. That's our promise. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Brother Abdelkhair. I would like to now call upon Terry Dugald, Liberal Member of Parliament and Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, CT. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and hello, and thank you so much for being here, and thanks to the National Council of Muslims and the Manitoba Islamic Association for bringing us together today. And let me begin by acknowledging, particularly after hearing the very powerful words of the young woman who was attacked, let me begin by acknowledging our solidarity with her, a person who was the victim of an unthinkable, unspeakable act of violence, and also to acknowledge her family, friends, and the entire Muslim community who were shaken by this incident. And to let the young woman know we are thinking of her today, that she is in our hearts and minds as she heals, and to let her know that the community stands with her in seeking justice for this hateful crime. There is no place for hate or racism in Canada. Every Canadian deserves to feel safe and secure in their community, in their workplaces, in their places of worship, regardless of their race, religion, or culture. Unfortunately, as my colleague, Leah Gazan, mentioned, we have been seeing a rise in hate crimes in Canada in recent years. From the horrific attacks in Quebec City and London, Ontario, just a few years ago, to the everyday incidents of racism all around us, we cannot shy away from the fact that anti-Muslim racism is increasing in Canada. Let me be very clear. The Government of Canada is a steadfast ally of the Muslim community. We wholly and completely condemn any act of hate or racism against Muslim Canadians or any other faith or minority group in our country. And that is why the Government of Canada has taken concrete steps towards ensuring that we fight against this rising tide of Islamophobia. We appointed Amira Elga Bawi as Canada's first ever special representative on combating Islamophobia. We have officially designated January 29th as the National Day of Remembrance and Action Against Islamophobia. And through budgets 2022 and 2023, we have invested over $100 million to fund Canada's anti-racism strategy and action plan. These are important steps in the right direction, but more needs to be done. I think all of us gathered here today agree with that. We must all step up as levels of government, organizations, citizens, neighbors, as law enforcement. We need to work closely with local organizations like the MIA here in Manitoba to call out Islamophobia wherever we see it and to ensure that we do everything we can to deal strongly with hate crimes in order to prevent tragic incidents like this one in the future. This act of violence at the Olive Garden on June 8th has all the hallmarks of an act of hate, targeted towards a young woman because of her race and or her religion. I stand alongside the National Council of Canadian Muslims and the Manitoba Islamic Association in their request that there be a fulsome investigation with this very much in mind. Thank you.
I messed up things. Okay. Thank you, Terry. I would like to now call upon the Honorable Obi Khan, Minister of Sport, Culture and Heritage.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and assalamu alaikum to everyone in attendance. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you all for being here today for this important press conference, not only for the Muslim community, but for all communities across Manitoba. On behalf of the Premier and my colleagues at the Legislature, I would like to start by extending our deepest condolences, concerns, sorrow, and prayer to the victim and her family and the entire community. I would also like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, and I think it's important that we start all gathering speeches with that acknowledgement that we are on Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Red River Métis. Today is not a day that I look forward to as a minister. I didn't run in politics to stand here on days like today, but I know days like today are needed. I am sorry and sad at what brings me here today, as opposed to the daily offering of prayers, weekly prayers that I proudly attend at this very mosque. While I cannot speak to the specifics of the case because this matter is before the judicial system, I want to again extend my prayers and condolences to the young family, the young victim, and everyone in the community. As a minister, as an elected official, as an MLA, as a Manitoban, as a father, as an active community member in this very community and many other communities, if not all communities across the province, and as a proud Muslim, I stand behind my community. I stand behind all communities when it comes to acts of violence and crime, period. Today is a day for our community to come together and rally the call against all forms of violence and crime. We must all stand together, and I am proud to be here and do just that today. Our government is committed to working for safer communities. I could go on and on when I was writing my notes about all the things our government is doing, but today is not the day for that. Today is the day to say that I stand united with our community and all communities when it comes to any acts of violence or crime. This must stop. It is getting out of control. You have the right to feel safe at work, at home, or walking around the city or your community, to feel safe at your place of worship or school. You have the right to feel safe everywhere you go in Manitoba and in Canada, and that is not the case sometimes. It seems like most days. Our Manitoba government will always fight for more safety for everyone. I welcome the conversation, and I thank the NCCM for coming to this important press conference and spearheading this along with MIA. And I look forward to that conversation and many other conversations and organizations and how we can work together for a safer Manitoba, because that is what's needed. We all see it. We read it every single day. We need to do something. And sadly, this is one of the incidences that might push us over the top to actually do something. And I'm proud to say that our government is doing something. In closing, again, I want to express my condolences to the family, to the young girl, to the entire community, and to all Manitobans. I look forward to having these conversations and continuing the dialogue and continuing to take concrete action towards making Manitoba safer for everyone. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay, I just need to acknowledge that Conservative MB Rachel Danko, she's running late, so we will end this and turn back to Asia for questions and answers. So thank you everyone for coming out and appreciate it.
Thank you all for being here. We're going to open it up for some questions. So we've had meetings with the Winnipeg Police Service around our concerns. As of now, the police service has confirmed that they've done their fulsome investigation. Our concerns are around the fact that charges were shared without the fulsome statement of the victim, and we're asking for a more fulsome investigation around the motive. As of now, they have completed their investigation. They're open to the conversation, but we are looking for more answers since we are concerned. Sure. Asya, Aasiyaah, last name Khan, Khan, Chief Operating Officer at the National Council of Canadian Muslims.
what would your message be to the police about whether, if something like this isn't done, if an investigation isn't done properly, what kind of message do you send you?
Well, I think the community has a number of concerns regarding the ways in which the investigation was completed. And, we have many members of the Winnipeg community here. But I think, when we're thinking about a Black Muslim woman being targeted in this manner, it certainly is concerning given other prairie provinces have seen similar incidences. We also know that this is kind of in the backdrop of the Quebec mosque shooting that took place in Quebec City, the London City attack. And so these instances, unfortunately, aren't new for our community. So with the rise in hate, we do need to see robust action at provincial, municipal, and federal levels around challenging Islamophobia. So this is certainly a traumatic incident, and of course, this is going to be impacting the victim for some time. The case is before the courts, so we're not going to be sharing specifics. We are waiting for satisfactory responses to our questions. We've had conversations, but we are looking for, again, a fulsome investigation around the motivation. Thank you all for your questions. We will be taking questions outside. Thank you.
Councillor Brian Mays from the city. You ran our program a little bit short, so thank you for your patience. We have Councillor Brian Mays from the city.
Thank you. Not too much I have anything wonderfully profound to say. I did not want people to have the impression that no one from the city level of government appeared. Obviously, Minister Khan's remarks and MP Dugard's and MP Gazan's are quite powerful, and the most powerful thing was the statement read out from the victim. I will just say, we do not, as councillors, direct the police as we might have before the changes in legislation in the early 2012, 2013 period, but I can certainly raise this issue with Councillor Chambers, who of course chairs the police board. Mayor Gillingham, to his credit, is on the police board as well. Certainly get some briefing on what has happened and what the reasons were behind the decisions made by the police. I do think it's important that this event has taken place, and I want to thank the organizers. As Abby said, we come here for happy events. We're here for the dinners. We're here for the carnival. I've been here for prayer with fellow elected officials. So I think it's important to show support and be an ally when it isn't a good news event. I think the Islamic community, perhaps this is important too, because we tend to think of it now as being so much part of everyday life in Winnipeg. We have prayers before council services. I read out a section from the Quran once. No one objected in my 50,000 people in my ward. Nothing but positive feedback. That would have been unimaginable 30 or 40 years ago. I presented with my wife, who's a religion prophet, at a conference called Islam on the Prairies in Saskatoon a few years ago, and we talked about the challenges with getting an Islamic burial site through the city of Winnipeg cemeteries. Again, no one would have thought of that 30 years ago. So I think perhaps we assume, speaking personally, that the community is now so much part of our everyday life, these sorts of events don't happen, but tragically they do. So I think it's important to have them highlighted. So thank you for organizing this. I think that's an important step, and we can do what we can do. We can go back and I can talk to the chair of the police board and try and get some sort of briefing, but I do appreciate the chance to speak. Thank you for that. And thank you for organizing the event. I think it's important to keep awareness that these sorts of crimes, these sorts of tragedies are still happening, may be on the rise, and we need to do, as Terry's highlighted, what the federal government's done, and I'll be the provincial government. We need to do what we can to stem that. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That brings me to the end of the press conference. I want to again thank you to all of our attendees today. Special thank you to all the leaders of the Muslim communities across Manitoba that have come together and worked with the Manitoba Islamic Association behind the support of the National Council of Canadian Muslims. So special thank you to everyone. And this concludes our event. Thank you.